Okay, this video will cover how to assemble our leg assembly and our body and leg parts into the frog assembly, which will look like this. We'll also make sure that our animations are working when we assemble it so that it will move like this. All right, let's get started. So we left off with our leg assembly, so you should have this created. We're going to make a new assembly, and this will be our frog robot. So we'll just rename it to frog robot. That's the whole thing. So let's start by bringing in our body and leg parts, just our body. So we need our base, and we need our left side and our right side. Notice they come through just like with the skateboard together, but they're really not together. This is going to be, we want to make sure we're oriented correctly. Our top here, our front, right, and left. So let's go ahead and just attach our sides to the base with a fastened mate. So we can use the fasten mate. I did not make a mate connector. This is a pretty straightforward fasten, but the shift key will help a lot. Remember, hold down the shift. That's that little up arrow next to my mouse. So hover over the base, hold down shift. Now we're going to grab that corner there. And now do the same thing. We want to grab the corresponding corner under here. Hold down shift once you have that face, and it's going to be this one right there. And if it did it correctly, you got it attached. And now you can use this, commit the current mate, start another fasten mate. Same thing, hold down shift, go over here, hover over that base, hold down shift, and we should have the same thing. Notice the other side breaks, hit solve, puts it back together, and then we'll click this checkbox. Oh, and I got something messed up there. I have it on the wrong side. So to fix the fasten mate that we already created, this is a good place to show another keyboard shortcut. K hides our mates. J shows our mate connectors. So combination of J and K, you can show all the mates. Now J shows that mate there. You can see here. You can click on it. It's right here. You can double click on it over here. And the issue was we're connected to the wrong spot on the right side. So we want to fix that by adding a mate to the right side. Hold down shift. That's what we wanted there. Oops, I missed it. Right side. Now it's correct. And we're back. So we can turn off our mates, J, for now. Next thing we're going to need is to bring in our leg assembly with the crank arm. The short dowel is already in there. So let's insert that. And from assemblies, leg assembly. And we'll bring that over here. We'll bring one in to start. Okay, so now we really just need to start. We're not going to have much more replicating anymore. Maybe once more. We are going to attach these together. Just pay attention to which one goes where. This top one will go to there. This one will go here. And this one will go here. Unlike your actual robot, we don't need the dowels on there. You're going to want to put your dowels on first. But for assembling this to make it work, we want to attach them. So the other thing we did not do when we made this was notice it's just kind of moves around freely, kind of. We want to fix the base of our frog. We'll make it so it won't move. So we right click on it and we choose this fix command, and that, notice it puts a little part is fixed, and it shows that the frog robot has parts fixed inside. If you have any others with fixed parts, you want to undo that because you only want one piece to be fixed, so everything else moves relative to it. So now when I move this around, I can't move this. It's got a little red do not move. All right, so let's go and add our cylindrical mates so that we can start putting this together. So here we want to show our mate connectors with K. because we're going to use, if we don't show our mate connectors, it's not going to use them. So there's mate connector 9. If I didn't show my mate connectors and I just, notice it says mate connector. Well, I don't know which way notice that's oriented out. It is oriented the wrong way. That's one of the problems. So we would have to modify that. That's why we don't want to create mate connectors by hovering over certain parts. We want to use our existing ones. So there we go. Now it's pointing inward. And that's going to be important when we do our float. We're going to pick this one here. Remember, hover over the yellow one. We already have that picked. Now we have it. So we want to add our limits, 0, and float. Can't type float today, and there we go. And we are going to add another one. So we're going to click that, and that gets that into place. We're going to add another one. Let's go up here. We're going to grab a mate connector there. And as long as you get it, it's good. Notice you're saying mate connector in a certain number. That means you got the right mate connector. Again, 0 and float. And I can click over here to do a new one. Got one more to do on this side. So here we go. We want this one and this one right here. And we want limits. We want limits on all these because everything moves independently. 0 and float. Hit enter 3 times. Now, you want to pay attention for errors. Anything turning red over here means you may not have assembled something in a way that will actually assemble. So here we have our first leg attached. Now there's a lot of mate connectors. You can hide them. Now we can test it out. This should just move around. If all your mates are right, it will also move to the right and left. And notice all the washers are sliding on there now. This one here moves as well. That was hard to show you in the leg assembly because we didn't fix the leg. You can always fix it just temporarily, but I didn't want you to forget because it would cause problems in here. So that is our free moving frog leg. Yours might not move that freely if your computer is a little slow, but it will catch up eventually. So now we need to repeat the same process with the other side. So we're going to insert another assembly, leg assembly, and click the box, and it's up there. Now we can actually rotate this around. If we click on the top view, if you want to make it a little easier to assemble, click on the top view, click here, and we can just spin it all the way around 180 degrees. Oops. 1.8, type that, and now we have it spun around so we can more easily assemble it. Again, show your mate connectors with the K key, and let's go and insert our cylindrical mate. There's the first one on here, and that's this one up here. And we need to put our limits. 0 and float. 3 enters does it. And then, oh, I wanted to create a new one, but that's fine. Cylindrical mate. Now this one's kind of hard to get to. We can just move these. Hang on. We can move them out of the way. Get them in a better position. That's good. And we can then do a cylindrical mate here to here, and limits, remember, 0 and float. And then instead of hitting enter a third time, I'm going to hit it over here, and I'm going to do my last one here, here, limits, 0, enter, float, tab, float, enter, and that's our last one. Okay, now we should have our other side all free, moving around. Hit our K, and that side's moving. Now that J key, there's all our mates. So you can see all the mates we did in the sub-assemblies. That's what these are called, sub-assemblies are showing. And so are our mates we just made in this assembly right here. Shows it on the first part we selected. So there's the cylindrical mate there. Shows those axes. If you pick the side first, which I think I did up here, get that further out, the mate will show up on the first side you picked. If you want to be consistent about that, it's helpful. Looks like I did this one. I picked the side first. So we can go and edit that mate and switch them. Double click on here. Oops, click once there and it shows you where it is down here. And the way you switch them is reorder items, click that, drag the loose washer first, and click done. Now notice the mate is on the loose washer. I would try to make sure that they're all consistent that way. There are some strange errors that occur when you're animating this. I still haven't quite figured out why, but if you for some reason pick the washer second and the side first like I did, I'd go and switch it. That's just a precaution. Because you're using a part that you made in a sub-assembly, the other ones should all be the same, and I'm just double checking if there's any issues with our sub-assembly. Looks like I might have picked the, oh, this was mated here. So a couple other things we'll have to fix at some point, I think. No, that looks good. Yeah, these are not, none of this is overlapping, which is good. If you have any overlap, that means you're missing a mate connector. Okay, so notice the sides are moving independently of each other. This side, that's not how our actual frog will work. Well, if you don't glue your dowels well enough, it might work that way. But you're going to want to obviously put some real dowels in here. So let's go and do that. We'll insert a dowel. The long dowel is missing, so we're going to use the long dowel. And we'll put one here. And these, notice they already have mate connectors on the ends. And the important thing about that is the mate connectors are aligned. So the y-axis is pointing up and the y is down. So when we go to connect everything, it'll orient everything correctly. So let's go and put this on. We'll put it on the top first. Now, one thing you'll notice right now, everything it moves pretty quick. When we add the dowel, it's going to add some complexity because it's going to force these sides to move together. It'll slow down our animations. So if you're having any trouble with this, you should check now because you can really move things around quickly and check. You can also check for the interference check, which we used in some of the curriculum. Interference detection is over here. And we can just draw a box around the whole thing. And notice it says no interferences. That means nothing's overlapping. If we slide everything in this way, it might cause some interference if you have some problems. So let's check that. Interference detection. And it's saying no interference. If you do have anything, it'll show up in red and it'll be listed down here. So we're looking good right now. So let's go and put our dowel in the very top. I'm going to move it apart. It's easier to see things. So this is going to be a fasten mate, and it's going to use the mate connector at the end of the dowel and the mate connector in this crank arm, which I don't have shown, so I want to show that. And there it is. I'm going to use it there. So the first one we're fine with. Now we want that dowel to exist on the other arms too. So we can actually replicate that. So we want to replicate that dowel, and it's going to replicate that fastened mate. Here we want to match individual edges, so we can go and do that here. There, it added it. We have to pick the edge, not the mate. It's one case where it's a little different. And now we have the dowel on all three of those, all three of our crank arms. So things, as you can see, are still kind of moving. Can I turn off my mates? You should see that that dowel is fastened in there. We haven't connected the whole thing together, but you'll see the dowel moves through the other side. I can actually grab it. So the last step is going to be to fasten that dowel. We'll choose the top. This is kind of a moment of truth that everything's working right, because if we go and fasten that, it should tie everything together. So fasten mate. We're going to pick that. We're going to do, okay, this is a little hard to see. So I zoom way in here. We're going to pick the mate connector on the end of our dowel. So that is going to be what appears to be this one right here. Mate connector of long dowel. That's how you know you got it. There's a way to turn on individual mate connectors. If we have a problem, we'll do that in a second. I'll show you that. And then we want to grab the mate connector on the snug, so the crank arm. So mate connector on the crank arm, and solve it. I don't see any errors, and notice everything looks good. If you were off by 90 degrees, you might be like that, but it's not going to work. So just keep flipping it until it's in the right position. Mine got to the right way right away. All right, so if you look closely, you can see I've got J turned on, that it is indeed connected. Now, if we move this back and forth, it's going to be a little slower. So you got the spinny thing happening there, but it's showing it's connected. And believe it or not, the whole thing will operate with that one connected because of our mates. The way you can try it is click on the center there. You can drag this around until it snaps on there. It gets it right in the middle, and then there it goes. It might take a minute to catch up, but it is now rotating. Now we've got one last thing to do. That is to attach the dowels down here to the crank arms. And we'll do that with our mate connectors shown again. And we're going to, this time, let's see, there's a lot of mate connectors in there. Let's hide all the mate connectors. Okay, only show the ones we want. So let's click on this crank arm, and notice it's showing the crank arm that we've picked, which is part of the leg assembly, and it's showing it's in the crank arm. And here we've got some mate connectors. So we can hover over until, oh, I want that mate connector to be shown. There we go. So we have a mate connector there, and then we can click the dowel, and let's see, let's go find that dowel. It's down here. It's part of this replicate. It's a long dowel, and we want that mate connector to be shown. So now we have just the mate connectors that we need to use to connect them. So we'll just do our fasten mate. There's one, there's two, and we're good. Check for errors. Make sure nothing turns red. That means there was a problem. You want to catch those errors early if they occur, so you don't have to dig for them. And then we've got one more to do here. Notice it's not fully through. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click on that crank arm, which is part of the leg assembly. Oops, part of the leg assembly. And crank arm down here, crank arm. And we want that mate connector to be shown. Same thing with the dowel. Hit spacebar, click on the dowel, long dowel, and we want that mate connector to be shown. Now we're going to fasten those together. That one, and that one. And make sure you're getting the mate connector in a number, and that should do it. The performance might be about the same as it was. And let's see how we do. Figure out which one there. It's this one up here. That's doing okay. There we go. So now that you have those dowels connected, you can see that you can move your dowels left and right. Takes a little bit. Might have to show this. There we go. And we've moved it all the way to the left. We can move it all the way to the right. And it does a pretty good job showing that those are working. It's one check you want to do. They're all working. Nothing's going through each other. Unfortunately, with Onshape, there's no way to just tell it, though, that part's solid, and don't go through it. You have to set up these limits to prevent it from doing that. People have requested it, but it has not been implemented yet. Okay, so if we show all our mate connectors again, we can see we have these three in the middle. And the last thing we can do is animate the whole thing. So let's see here. We are missing a mate connector in the middle. So, oops, should have one. We have the one we made halfway between. Oh, I know what we're missing. We need a mate connector on the dowel itself to connect to, and that'll help us animate it. There's a way to animate this. So let's go to our crankshaft parts. We need a mate connector right in the middle of this dowel. So let's click on mate connector, and notice if I just hover over the whole dowel itself, I can put one right in the middle. There we go. That's it. That's what we're missing. Go back to our frog robot assembly, and now we have, if you notice, we've got two mate connectors. If you slide this to the left, you'll see the other one. Oh, we got to show them all again. Okay, there we go. They were hidden at first. Mate connectors are often hidden in the assemblies. So one thing we can do, we can take our top mate connector and animate. There's several ways to animate this. I found a revolute mate. A revolute mate's a lot like a cylindrical mate, except for it does not move left to right. You don't want to leave it going. You want to suppress it because it doesn't really, it holds your crankshaft right in the middle, which helps the animation, I notice. It's not really actually what you want, but to make it look cool and animate, we're going to put a revolute mate between this mate here and this mate here. So, and we're going to check it. Now notice it's preventing this from moving side to side. That's fine for now because what we're going to use it for is just one thing, and then we're going to suppress it. Right click on it, it's way down here, and we're going to animate it. Okay, and now it's picking the Z. Find that about 100 steps, sometimes 50, and a loop should do it. Let's try 50. I think 50 is faster. 50 step and a loop. So we can zoom out a little bit, hide our mate connectors. Oops. Let's run it. It's going to generate. So it spins down here while it gets ready. I think we can hit K now. And as soon as it's ready, it should animate this. And sure enough, it is working. You can switch the reverse the direction if you want. So that works pretty well to animate it. So I just think that is pretty cool. Notice this crankshaft here is indeed centered on the top because we used that revolute mate to lock it in. These washers are kind of just floating on there. I don't know if we can move it when it's animating, but we can stop that. You'll want to go down to this revolute and suppress it. That when you're not doing your animation, you can even rename this, call it the animation mate. Spell animation right. Animation mate. Okay, so that's my animation mate. I only enable that when I want to animate it. So now I can move this left to right, just back like I was before. All right, that is the final step of animating it. The last step is to add the pulley, which you can probably figure out. You just bring it in here and you can drop it right on there using a, you can use a slider mate if you want for that. So it'll bring it on, and what the heck, let's just do it. We'll insert our crankshaft parts. Oh, not all of them. Nope. I want to insert my crankshaft parts. I'm going to do, I did it again. Insert. Not all my crankshaft parts. My pulley inner and two pulley outers, since that's what the pulley is made up of. very quickly. We might even be able to use the snap mode with these. Snap mode is the way to make mates automatically snap together. Sometimes it's hard to align them, but let's see if it's good enough to do it. And oh wait, you have to grab a mate. It's actually been a while since I used this. Grab this mate here and drag it onto that mate. And there we go, snap together. And yes, it fastened it. Same thing here. Grab this mate. It's nice once you have some mates in here. If you drag it by the mate, basically. Drag it by the mate, and once it gets close enough, let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. That's snapped. Now we can bring this down here, and let's see if we probably can do it again. Although we want to do a slider mate. That way you can, you're going to want to experiment with when you make this where you want this pulley to be. So we can use any one of these mates and bring it onto the top crankshaft and solve it. And there we are. Now this slides on here. Eventually we will glue it in place. Oh, it's still using snap mates mode. I probably didn't want to do that, so I'll undo snap mates mode. Don't know if it snapped. Did it snap? No, did not. So you can see we don't have any limit set, so you can technically slide that right through the side. And that's what you might have happening if you've missed one of these mates. You can see, obviously, interference detection. If we select everything, Control A, no, that doesn't do it. We need to draw a box around everything. And there we go. We have an interference there. That's what it's saying. And by the way, with that pulley, if I move it, even if I move it into its proper place, we're going to see an interference on that because I've set that cardboard hole to be slightly smaller than the dowel so that it fits extra tight. So we are going to see interference in that spot right there. Because notice that, and that's just because when you put that on there, you want to get lots of glue on there. That's going to have a lot of torque on it to drive your robot. You want that nice and tight. So we intentionally made that smaller. And that's it. That is your frog robot with its pulley installed. You're going to be designing a motor mount for this and installing that into here. I do notice we have some mate errors, and this does happen occasionally with some of our mates, and this might just be a bug. A lot of times you can just undo Control Z until it goes away. Yep. So I don't know what caused that, but just keep an eye on those red mates. It's something to do with our pulley, but they're all gone now. All right.